Well, hey friends, welcome back, and this is day 21 of our 25-day Christmas Advent watercolor paint-along, and today we're going to be painting the 3 gifts from the Magi to Jesus. But before we jump in, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of the series, and go ahead and tap the like button if you're painting along with me today. It really helps this video to reach more people. Let's grab our supplies and get your paper ready, and we'll start with a simple sketch. Now, if you prefer tracing to freehanding, you can always find the template available on my website. I'm just going to start with a few simple shapes. We're going to get the box here and put gold in one, frankincense in a second, and then we'll have a bottle of myrrh. And if you don't want to do a super detailed sketch, you don't have to. If you prefer something a little more loose or nondescript, you can add kind of your own details as you go. Feel free to do that. Now, this series, as much as it's kind of, instructive or leading you in a certain kind of group of things as we move through the Advent season, art is such a unique thing in that you can take so much inspiration from really anybody's work and change it just a bit and make it your own. All right, let's have a few gold coins out here. And we'll have a little bit of frankincense kind of scattered here. I'm using odd numbers of these objects. And then we will add a bottle back here for our myrrh. All right, and there is my simple loose sketch of the 3 gifts. And before I move on, I'm going to activate my paints. I'm also going to be using some gold metallics today. So I've got my CSY Art Gallery gold mini palette that I'm going to activate. All right, let's start with the interiors of our boxes. And the wise men were fairly wealthy group of men. So the gifts that they brought were very opulent and not commonplace gifts. So they would have had some very fine vessels for these gifts to be given in. So we'll add some red velvet in the interior of this box, and I want just a nice little bit of shading in here. So I'm going to mix a little bit of black and a little bit of my crimson red, and we're just gonna touch this near the top here where we would have some shadows. And I'm being fairly loose with my painting today. If you want to be a little more detailed, you can most certainly use a little bit cleaner lines. I'm gonna do a blue velvet interior on this, so I'm gonna use the ultramarine blue. So I'm gonna go around the edges where the more shadow areas would be. And then as I get more towards the interior part, I'm going to use a damp, clean brush to just soften that and bring those together. Now we will add just a little touch of like an indigo here in the corners. Maybe add a little wrinkle in there. And then we'll get, like there's a lining on this box of frankincense. Now frankincense, I believe, was like this a resin of the sap of a tree, and it was actually used as one of the ingredients in the Jewish temple in their incense that they burned in the temple. Let's get a little bit of that indigo so you can get some little shadows going on. All right, let's get this bottle back here. I am going to be using a deep red as my main color. And like it's a kind of a glass or just a beautiful bottle. We'll get just a little bit of scarlet, like it's a kind of a glowing, not glowing like it's got light inside of it, but just kind of a nice little glowy. And then we'll add some deeper shadows here. All right, and then on the top, we're gonna make this like a nice little amber kind of jewel. So I'm gonna start with, we're gonna leave a highlight area blank. We're gonna leave that untouched, and then I'm gonna go in with some golden yellow, add some yellow ochre for a good majority of the rest of the amber top. If you feel like that kind of overtook all your golden yellow, you can clean that up with your brush just a little bit. And then I'm going to use my burnt orange we'll just tap in a couple little places for some deeper jewel tones here. All right, let's go in and get the wooden interior of our boxes. Now these probably would have been, if they were like a gold covered box, they probably would have been gold overlaid over a nice wood. So we'll go in with our wood tones. I'm using a medium brown here. We will add some coffee brown just from the little variations in the wood tones. And don't want to forget that this is going to have some sort of thickness to it. And let's get the interior part of this box. We'll add a couple details in just a bit to kind of help define all the edges of the box. All right, I've got a darker tone here. I'm going to add just a little bit of edges and corners. And then a little bit of a shadow here where the gold coins, there's going to be a little bit of a shadow down there. If it's a little bit of a harsh line, you can always go in with your clean, damp brush and just soften that up a bit. All right. Now let's get we'll work on the frankincense here. I'm going to use a very light wash of yellow ochre. This resin is kind of a nice warm golden tone to it. So we'll start with just a very light wash and we'll add some dimension and shadows in just a bit. Make sure you get the little bits of frankincense here on the table or on the ground as well. Now go into your yellow ochre and we're just going to add some little facets on these. The color that I washed in there is not super wet. Don't want it to be puddling, so we can kind of control our deeper tones as we add those in. All right, and I'm going to use some burnt orange to add just a few touches of some even deeper tones in here. Just little bits, so you get kind of that jewel effect here. All right, I'm gonna move on to the myrrh that's over here, and the myrrh is a bit darker. So I'm gonna go in with my burnt sienna, do a bit of a lighter wash. Again, this is not super wet and puddling. And then I'm gonna go in with a coffee brown and just add some rougher faced facets on here. The coffee brown's a little bit warmer, so it tends to lend to a nicer shade to match that burnt sienna better than some of the other browns. All right, now let's add, I'm gonna use the burnt orange and some of the yellow ochre. I'm gonna start adding in the gold for our boxes. We will come in a little bit and add just a few details to these with a darker brown and some Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white to get those shiny highlights in there. All right, and then in the feet underneath, let's use a little bit of burnt sienna and that coffee brown. Where these areas are kind of in a shadow, so they're gonna be a little bit darker. Just adding a little bit of definition here with some of these colors to let them, that kind of golden glow come up here. All right, let's get the lid here. If you feel like it needs to be a little bit lighter, you can always take your clean damp brush, maybe lift up some of that color and get some variation going in there. All right, I'm gonna get some coins painted in. Now I'm gonna go in with my nice warm yellow. I'm going to paint around the circles and then kind of a line across. And then I'm going to go in with my yellow ochre, add some more of that golden kind of tones. And I'm not going to paint the whole coin face. Remember to add that little bit of a thickness to your coin. And we're gonna leave a little bit of this unpainted to get that shiny reflection on there. And just maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. All right, let's add the gold coins to our box. Now remember that if the light is coming from this direction, this part of the pile back here is going to be a fair amount darker than what's in front. So as we move away from the light, just add some of those darker values in there. All right, let's get the gold on this box of frankincense in. Again, I'm starting with the yellow ochre. Coming in with some burnt orange. A little coffee brown under there to get those feet in the shadows. Clean wet brush to bring that front face of the box together. All right, let's get the lid of our box and then the little edges here. Remember to add just a few little darker areas where the shadowing might be. All right, let's get the gold on our bottle of myrrh. Now this bottom area is going to be a deeper tone because it's going to be in the shadows more. You can add just a little bit of the burnt sienna for some nice golden little touches, and then working in some vertical stripes, just a few here and there. Add those little shiny and darker spaces to the metal. And then you can always use touch of golden yellow. All right, I am going to leave a bit of a highlight on this part of the bottle. So I'm going to leave this area, just a little space inside of here, and then if you accidentally fill in with too much color, you didn't leave enough space, or your hand accidentally got a little heavier than you were trying to be, it's okay. We can always go back and add in a highlight. This brush keeps wanting to pick up more water. I'm trying to. Go in with a clean, damp brush and kind of soften those lines. And then I'm going to get into my little chocolate brown here. And just a few little details to this fun little bottle. All right, now let's add just a few details to these boxes. I can't imagine that these would be like super plain boxes, so I'm going to use this fine brush and just add a few little kind of shadowing details. This is where you can get kind of unique in what you're putting on here. My only suggestion is to keep the design work symmetrical. In this box, I'm going to make this design carry up to here. All right, this box I'm going to make slightly different. We've got like a larger kind of clasp here. And if your box is still slightly damp, that's okay. It's just gonna soften some of these lines. And honestly, I think it actually looks a little bit better with some slightly softer line work in there. All right, I'm gonna make just a few little designs on this bottle here. I'll go really light over here because I want that highlight to kind of be featured. All right. Now that we have all of that in there, I'm going to get my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and we're going to add, whoop, got a little crumbly on me. All right. Now, if it ever looks like this, it's not ruined. This stuff will all loosen up for you. Just get your water and start mixing it up. It does not ruin your product when it's got, you know, crumbly bits there. All right, I'm gonna add some highlights. So on this amber, I'm gonna add a nice larger highlight and a couple small little glowy highlights here. Little bits here and there where we have a nice little reflection. In our gold. Just keep your highlights consistent with the direction of the light source. Maybe a little highlight on the feet. All right, if your gold needs a little bit of highlight, if you accidentally painted a little too much, maybe a little highlights on the frankincense. The myrrh. Don't forget the lid of your box. And we also need some nice little highlights on our bottle here. And maybe just a few in here, and that gold reflecting the light in here. All right, let's get a background here. And if you've watched any of the other Advent series, you know that I don't like floating objects. So we're gonna use a nice deep tone underneath these gifts. I'm gonna use some Payne's Gray. No, not Payne's Gray, excuse me, Van Dyke Brown. Just underneath, so we know that they're being set on something and casting a nice shadow directly beneath. And the light's coming from this direction, so we will paint our darkest cast shadows going that way. And this is just going to be a real loose background. We want the gifts to be the main focus of this piece. So I'm just going to take that shadow and wrap it around, and then use a clean damp brush to just blend it out a bit. You can put your dark values in here, because again, this is going to be an area that's got a cast shadow on it from our gifts. And it'll lighten as we get more towards the top. Just a nice soft background. Taking some more diluted Van Dyke Brown and going around these objects on the directly on the ground, the little loose loose pieces here. Just go around them gently, carefully, so you don't cover them up. If you don't get every single bit of the background with paint, that's fine. This is a looser representation of these gifts as far as the type of painting, so you can be a little more free with this paint. All right, get worked all the way around. And these little objects need just a little bit of a shadow underneath them. All right, and there you are. If you would like to add a few little gold highlights with the metallic, you can always do that. My gold is fairly warm, so I'm going to use this nice kind of almost a pink gold color. And I would just add little touches here and there. I would not paint this in solid. You can always add little touches to these gold coins. A little bit to the outside of the box. All right, and there you have it, friends. That is day 21 of our Advent watercolor paint along. And if you enjoyed painting these gifts from the Magi with me, I would love for you to leave me a comment below and tell me how it went. What was your favorite part? Did you go a little rogue and give your own designs on there? Or did you have something that was a little difficult? Don't forget to like in this video and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the watercolor Advent series. And if you're looking for templates, private classes, or live painting sessions, you can find all of that information on my website. I just wanted to share a quick verse with you. It's from Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. And it's, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And I hope this little painting just reminds you of the gift of love and salvation that God offered to us when he sent Jesus, his son, and that you are enjoying giving gifts as we remember Jesus, the best gift that we were given. And I hope to see you tomorrow for day 21. Thank you.